The Nazi army undoubtedly built some of the largest and deadliest war weapons ever seen. From Dora to SCHWERER GUSTAV and the Panzer VIII Maus, Germany has never run short of super heavy tanks and war weapons. But unlike these famous super tanks, the LANDKREUZER P1000 RATTE was never built and merely remained a design. Hey there, and welcome to your favorite history channel, where we bring you fascinating documentaries about the most intriguing personalities, events, landmarks, and establishments in history. In today's video, we'll be detailing the history of yet another of Hitler's killer weapons that was designed to be launched for World War II. The LANDKREUZER P1000 RATTE would have been the largest, heaviest tank ever created. But before we get into the details about this incredible weapon of war, kindly make sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and smash the notification bell to receive notifications of when we post more mind-blowing historical videos like this one. Do leave us a comment as well, as we'd love to read your opinions on how the LANDKREUZER would have impacted the outcome of World War II. Now, let's get to it. Hitler was a huge fan of big technological weapons, monstrous battleships, supersonic rockets, and jet aircraft. These were just a few of the advanced devices the Third Reich put onto the battlefield during World War II. One of Hitler's planned and secret weapons that didn't make it into action, however, was the LANDKREUZER P1000 RATTE. The LANDKREUZER was a true rolling fortress and would have been the largest and heaviest tank ever created. Projected to weigh over 1,000 tons, which was 5 times the weight of the heaviest tank ever built at the time, and measuring 115 feet long, the RATTE was a testament to overkill. Asides being much heavier and larger, it was also more powerful than any other tank ever built, or designed by any other country either before, during, or after the war. If the LANDKREUZER had seen the light of day, it would have undoubtedly affected the outcome of the war in Germany's favor. The development of the RATTE began with a 1941 strategic study of Soviet heavy tanks conducted by Krupp, a study that likewise gave birth to the Panzer VIII Maus super heavy tank, Germany's biggest war tank going into World War II. In the aftermath of the study, Edward Grote, Krupp's director and special officer for submarine construction, proposed a 1,000-ton tank which he named a LANDKREUZER to Hitler. The Führer was completely taken in with Grote's concept and ordered Krupp to begin development on it in 1942. As of December 1942, a few preliminary drawings had been completed, by which time the supertank had been renamed the LANDKREUZER P1000 RATTE. The tank was designed to be so heavy that only similar weapons could hope to affect it. The project was however cancelled by the Minister of Armaments, Albert Speer, in early 1943, and no examples were ever completed. To compensate for its immense weight, the RATTE would have been equipped with 3 1.2 meter wide treads on each side, with a total tread width of 7.2 meters. This would help stability and weight distribution, but the vehicle's sheer mass would have destroyed roads and rendered bridge crossings completely impractical. However, it was hoped that with its height and its ground clearance of 2 meters, the tank would be capable of crossing most rivers with relative ease, thus eliminating the need for bridge crossings. Krupp was the same German company that built the SCHWERER GUSTAV and its twin Dora. By its design, the P1000 would have had twin-linked battleship cannons in a rotating turret mounted on it. These cannons would be capable of shooting 280mm shells at enemy tanks, as well as numerous other small arms and anti-aircraft weapons. The tank would likewise be manned by a 40-man crew and would have had a large vehicle bay area. At 1,000 metric tons, the P1000 would have been over 5 times as heavy as the Panzer VIII Maus, the largest tank available at the time, and would have had a 36cm thick front armor. Given its weight, the supertank would have been able to reach a maximum speed of 40 km an hour only. The P1000 was very special, in a lot of ways. First, it can't be destroyed from the outside, and anyone who thought of destroying it would have to find a way in, locate its ammunition rack, and blow it up with explosives held within it. The destroyer would also need to set off about the most powerful bomb the tank would have held, probably the No. 82 Gammon bomb. The RATTE was to be propelled by 2-man V12Z32 44 24-cylinder marine diesel engines of 8,500 horsepower each, as used in U-boats to achieve the over 16,000 horsepower needed to move this tank. The engines were to be provided with snorkels, the pioneer engineers of German submarines. The snorkels were designed to provide a way for oxygen to reach the engine so that the P-1000 can easily be used for amphibious operations and driven through deep water. Aside having its primary weapons to be two 280mm SKC-34 naval guns that to be mounted in a modified naval heavy cruiser turret as used in the Gneisenau-class warships. The P-1000 RATTE would also have further armaments that consist of a 128mm anti-tank gun of the type used in the Panzer VIII Maus, two 15mm Mauser MG 151-15 autocannons, and 8 20mm Flak 38 anti-aircraft guns, with at least 4 of them as a quad mount. Some concept drawings of the P-1000 suggest that the 128mm anti-tank guns would have been mounted within the primary turret, while some other drawings show that a smaller secondary turret at the rear of the RATTE would have been more logical. The P-1000 would also have been fitted with a vehicle bay sufficient to hold 2 BMW R12 motorcycles for scouting, as well as several smaller storage rooms, a compact infantry area, and a self-contained restroom. The P-1000 RATTE would have destroyed any tarred roads it gets driven on, especially given its huge weight and size. No existing railway or train car could bear its weight, and its width was far too great for existing tunnels. The supertank's movement would have therefore been extremely limited. Although its top intended speed was 40 km per hour, the RATTE's huge size and high visibility would have made it very vulnerable to aerial bombardment and artillery attack. Its humongous size would also have implied that once built, the supertank's strategic, operational and tactical mobility would be entirely dependent on its own drivetrain. This is especially so as there was no feasible means of moving it from one firing position to another. The RATTE was one of the proposed Wunderwaffe of the Nazi regime. Wunderwaffe, which literally translates into miracle weapon, was the collective name given to the numerous superweapons that the Nazis attempted to develop during the war. These included such outrageous ideas as the Kugelpanzer ball tank, the 800mm caliber SCHWERER GUSTAV railway gun, and the enormous Messerschmitt Me-323 transport plane. Quite unfortunately, the RATTE was ultimately deemed to be extremely impractical and constituted one of the few miracle weapons that never became a reality. Despite the visible challenges and immense limitation of the gigantic P-1000 RATTE, it was quickly seized upon and championed by Adolf Hitler. Heinz Guderian, a German general and leader of the Third Reich tank divisions, wrote in his autobiography that Hitler's fantasy led him into the realm of the gigantic. In the years between the First and Second World Wars, however, aircraft technology had become very advanced to make the RATTE obsolete even before it was built. And despite the RATTE's anti-aircraft guns, it would have been difficult to protect the supertank against an onslaught of dive bombers equipped with 500-pound bombs. A single bomb of this size would have been able to penetrate even the RATTE's armor and put it out of action. But the Führer was far too absorbed in his fantasy for gigantic weapons and had an even bigger version of the RATTE planned, the LANDKREUZER P-1500 monster. This device would have carried an 800mm SCHWERER GUSTAV artillery piece that could fire 7-ton projectiles and would have weighed 1,500 tons. Because the massive gun would not be mounted on a turret, however, the monster would have been considered a self-propelled armoured artillery rather than a tank. Undoubtedly, the British had the right idea and were much smarter when they cancelled a humongous project and what might have been their own version of the RATTE called the Flying Elephant back in 1916. Being faster and more mobile can make up for a lot of armour and firepower. Hitler's supertank was, as Guderian noted, just a gigantic fantasy.